welcome to the show. So good to have you on today.
I'm excited. It's a fun opportunity to like talk to a friend and have like a business reason to do it. So I'm happy to be here.
I love that. That's the first time anybody said that to me. That's fantastic. So yeah, we're gonna have a great time today, and we have quite a few things in common we'll talk about, including you're a podcaster, which I'm sure we'll get into, and all those other things. But I'm not going to steal your thunder. So, Mike, first thing I'd love is if you would introduce yourself to the audience. Obviously, who you are, where you are in the world today, because we're doing this virtually, and yeah, just a little bit about you.
Yeah, thanks. I'm like a kid who grew up in a trailer park to teen parents who realized, I just realized really early that the stories we tell ourselves and the stories we tell other people, like actually do dictate our lives. And I don't mean this like some woo-woo way, although I'm sure we're going to get super woo-woo in this podcast because that always happens with me. And, it's because I live in LA, maybe. It's like the hills have rubbed off on me and I'm like made to live in a canyon with Joan Baez or something. I'm not sure. But I realized at a really early age that the stories we tell ourselves often dictate the stories we tell other people, which ultimately become the stories they tell themselves about us. And I realized that if you could rewrite those stories, all of them, the ones you tell yourselves, the one you tell other people, the ones they end up telling about you, that in some ways you could really write your own ticket. And so for a long time, I worked in the restaurant industry, and I was an improv actor, and I got really successful at that, much more successful at working in the restaurant industry than I was as an improv actor. So I moved to doing that on the side and kept rising up in the restaurant world in Chicago to heading up training departments and HR departments, eventually becoming a sommelier and wine trainer, and then finally being a partner in my own business that we grew to about 15 locations in 3 different states, and sold that. And after selling that, was like, okay, so what do you do next? And I didn't really realize that you could go out and be a speaker and be a trainer. I thought you had to be like very famous author with 7 books, or you had to go work for Franklin Covey. And so I started consulting because I was at a party and I had too many glasses of wine, and this guy was talking about that happens. It should happen. It's a good thing.
Funny how that happens. Yeah, that's happened to me. That's happened to me a couple times.
In a world of Uber and Lyft, like have all the wine. Like that's what it's for. That's what it's there for. There's stores filled with it for us. And and I was at this party and I was talking with someone who had some locations of his company, his retail kind of food retail company. And he was getting ready to double in size and go outside of the state of California for the first time, and was talking about the challenges he was facing. And I'd had enough wine that I was like, oh, well, you got to do this and you got to do that and you got to do this and figure it out. Yeah, but he loved it. And so he was like, oh, can I have a business card? I was like, no, you can like put my number in your phone. And I just thought he was like hitting on me. And I was like, I'm married, but like take my number anyway. And so the next day he called, he's like, will you come and talk to my team? And I was like, sure. So I like drove over to their office in Santa Monica and talked to his team. And then we went on a walk to get coffee. And he, which is really good that I let him talk first, because I was about to be like, hey, like I'm married and I think you got the wrong idea here.
Oh no.
And he was like, hey, so what would it cost to work with you? And I was like, to do what? And he was like, well, like how much do you charge for consulting for X, Y, and Z? And I was like, well, how much is it worth to you to solve that? What's it worth? I just like went into this mode. I was like, I don't know who I am all of a sudden, but that came out. And so I remember I went home and I was like, I think I need to get business cards, because I think that's what consultants do, is they have business cards and just like scribble their number on people's hands in a wine bar. And so that started me consulting, and I'm horrible at deliverables, Jason. Like if you need me to, if I promise I'm going to send you a file or anything, it's never going to happen. I need to like do it right then in that moment. Whenever I'm on a call and someone's like, can you send me this? It's like, yes, but do not hang up until I send it to you. Like if you don't get it now, you're never going to get it. So as a consultant, that's not good. I was like, I'm going to be broke. So I thought, well, maybe I could just teach workshops to like teach people what I would do for them in consulting, and then I could teach them to do it themselves. And then I had this whole message of like, well, instead of paying me to keep coming back all the time, what if I taught your team to do it? And people were like, yeah, that's awesome. And I thought, oh, sweet. I'm a workshop seminar trainer. And somebody from that left to become run an association. And she reached out and said, hey, will you be our keynote speaker for our event? And I was like, yes, send me the details. And she sent me an email, and in it said like, our honorarium is this much. And I thought that I had to pay her, because
That's
thought
amazing.
the only thing I'd ever seen people speak at an event like that were people that were selling things in the back of the room. So I thought, oh, I have to pay them to be on stage to sell stuff. And I was like, well, I don't have anything to sell, so maybe I shouldn't do it. I shouldn't go and do it. And so then I was like, well, let me look up and see how honorarium works. So I Googled it and I was like, oh, shoot, she wants to give me some money. So I was like, yes, I'll do it. And then I thought, wait a second, you could become a speaker. And so that led me to go into speaking. And then that led me to teaching other people to do that and help people be more dynamic communicators and storytellers as leaders, as professionals, and then eventually to authors and entrepreneurs. And that's what I do today. I drink a lot of iced coffee here in Southern California, and I teach people how to use storytelling to change their business and change what's going on around them.
Oh, man, that's amazing. So I'm going to summarize all that up in one sentence. You've done some stuff.
Yeah. And along the way, I drank a lot of wine. So that's...
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I want to correct you on something. You said, and I drink a lot of iced coffee. I think you probably still drink a lot of wine would be my guess.
Yeah. They have day parts though, right? So like the iced coffee is until about, 11. I've got a little more time here with my iced coffee today. And then we take a little break in the afternoon. We hydrate with the water and then move on to the wine. You know what? You know what's really crazy, Jason? What I love? There's this drink called gut shots. Have you seen this in the grocery store?
No, what is it? No.
It's essentially like fermented vegetables. So it like there's one that tastes like pickle juice and there's one that's like ginger beet. So after I do my coffee in the morning, I drink like a couple shots of this like fermented vegetable. It's like probiotic. It's such a California thing, isn't it?
I was going to say, like, I feel like that this is just the ultimate California conversation right now.
I think there's someone in Williamsburg that's doing this too, though.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a Billsburg thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure I could find that in New York. I personally don't know where it is. I'm going to go get a slice of pizza. You can go do your gut shot.
See, I like to do both. I like to do I like to try. I've tricked myself into thinking I'm canceling out the like acidic iced coffee and the acidic wine and the acidic pizza with the gut shot. It's like,
yeah, that's how it works.
That's okay.
That's how biology works. Yeah,
I'm telling my doctor, like Jason said, I'm good.
Yeah. And if a doctor hears that, he's like, that's wrong. That's definitely not correct. Well, thanks for sharing that, Mike. And we are obviously going to hear a lot more about that today. So as I like to do as a tradition of the show, I always like to let the audience know how Mike and I know each other. And so Mike, I met Mike last December at Heroic Public Speaking. I've had a few of our mutual friends on the show here so far. Barbara Churchill, Michael Hudson, Howie Cross, Stephen Drum have been, we've done episodes and all people that Mike and I know together. And so that's how we met. And Mike was I'm going to forget the exact title. Maybe you can correct me, but Mike was one of the people facilitating the whole experience for us, the whole training and education and lifting us up and challenging us quite a bit too, which is what you need when you're in that sort of environment. So that's how Mike and I know each other. And Mike, this might be a little bit trickier for you than it is for me, which is why I'm going to have you go first. So I always like to have, and actually Michael Hudson inspired this one. It was for me, this little thing I like to start the show with. Our first impressions of each other. And I say it's a little trickier for Mike because I was one of 60 people in one of the many, like cohorts that you did. And you were a person that I was watching on stage. So like, I'm like in a sea of people out there, just kind of one of the faces. And I'm like, oh, and that's a guy in front of the room for an hour teaching us how to speak and do improv and all that stuff. So if you have a first impression, if you remember, Mike, and if you do remember, actually, we met at Heroic Public Speaking Live, but that was like 500 people and you were doing training. So you probably don't even remember. I think we maybe shook hands, but do you remember a first impression? I guess is the question. And if you do, what was it?
I definitely don't remember HPS Live. It was those events were, like 500 or 600 people. And I think the year that you came, I was probably emceeing as well.
You were. And so I was definitely were
racing around the whole time. But and I remember that. I remember my initial impressions of you. I remember thinking that you were really thoughtful. Like you have a very thoughtful face to me. Like you look like someone who is really thinking. And I remember then watching that transition into being a really great curator. My feeling about you, my initial feeling about you is that you were always curating people and experiences. You were always making sure nobody was left behind. I saw you do that from like ride sharing with people to making sure people had dinner plans.
Yeah.
You always seem to be in the center of making sure people were being taken care of. And so my initial thoughts about you were that you were really thoughtful.
Yeah, I think I'm over here like I'm trying not to laugh my ass off right now because the whole like your face is like what you said about my face. Like the other feedback I get is I have a really strong RBF. So I'm like, what Mike is reading is thoughtful and caring. It's other people that is just a resting
Well,
bitch face.
but you know what's really interesting, Jason? Like so much of my and you've seen this, like so much of my job as a public speaking and story coach is being able to see what's underneath.
Yeah,
People
totally.
people will get on
Yeah.
stage and they'll be presenting a certain way and there's something not clicking. The frequency isn't right. And
Hmm.
it requires me to be able to tap into like what's blocking that and what's in the way. And so like the RBF thing, like I often don't notice that with people. What I'll see
Mm.
is where is that coming from? And sometimes it is coming from like a I'm putting this face on to protect myself. And other times
Yep.
it's coming from I'm just being really thoughtful and trying to like absorb everything so I can figure out my next play. And that's how
Yeah.
I read you.
Yeah, well, and I want to say from the episode with Michael Hudson, which actually we're recording this with Mike in January. Michael was my episode on Monday that's out live now. It's episode 4. The reason this came about is he told me one time when I was on the phone with him, just chatting. He's like, "Can I tell you something?" I'm like, yeah, okay. He's like, I thought you were really intense, and I didn't really know what to think of you. And I said, yeah, dude, that's because I walked in a room of people that I admire, and I like had a story that were better than me, and I'm like a little old me in the corner, like total inferiority complex, imposter syndrome. And I'm like, so yeah, like probably put on my RBF and like tried to like alpha dog or like, like whatever I thought that was effective that obviously isn't effective at all. And so that's where actually this part of the show comes from. And what Michael and I talk about, he's like, but then when I got to know you, that's like not you at all. I'm like, no. So I actually took that as a powerful lesson of like, yeah, it's really important how you show up. And even when you're feeling things like, yeah, like I don't want people to think that I'm intimidating because I don't not think I'm intimidating or really have an RBF. But so I'm glad you saw that. I mean, I think I agree. That's, it's generally, I'm a guy who I like to party. I like to socialize. I'm a complete extrovert, which is a blessing and can be a massive curse as well, because you never go to bed. Um, but yeah, so I appreciate the kind words, Mike. And I think that's true. So my first impression of you is I think people are already picking up. You're like tons of energy, like really fun energy. It's like being with Mike, and I do improv as well. I'm not nearly as experienced as you. I know you've studied, like some of the best people in the country and performed all over. Like I do some classes here in New York City at the Pit, People's Improv Theaters. I've mentioned a couple times, and Mike, I know you know that school as well. It's great. Like being around Mike is kind of like watching a one man improv show all the time, and I mean that in the best way. Like you have your rehearsed, you have your bits and things, but you're a person that I admire because I feel like you're actually creating on the fly. If not the script itself, you're creating like the movements and the smiles and the language. And like watching you, my first impression, like, oh, that's a master of his craft. So that was my first impression of you. And of course, I saw you doing that on a stage in front of 60 of us. Well, actually, no, at HBS Live is in front of probably a couple hundred of us. So I don't know, like, you're really good at, it's like, there's obviously script and memorization that's going on, and I think you're really like amazing at like improving and creating on the fly. If it doesn't feel right to you, you're like have like that quick switch, be like, oh, like, let me try this thing because I trust my gut. And speaking, which I think for somebody who's not a speaker, professional speaker, although podcasting, I guess you could say, is speaking. Like that's something that I really admire when people just know how to like trust their gut on the stage. And I guess that comes from years of practice and training and all the things you've been up to.
Yeah, I think it's about a couple of things. One is it's ultimately about trusting yourself. And regardless of all the things I don't trust myself to do, which is a long list, but I really trust myself in the moment to be able to tap into what's going on and to respond. And I actually trust my ability to respond much better sometimes than I do my ability to go away to a cave and write something and come out. And
Hmm.
so for me, that's where my like, if I were to say like I had any swagger or confidence on stage or in front of people, it comes because I really, really trust my ability to tune into the frequency and figure out what to do.
Hmm.
And I'm
Yeah.
also really, really comfortable at this point being myself in front of people. And I think
Yeah.
that that's what people want. And so it works,
Yeah,
thankfully.
totally. Yeah.
I don't know how to
Yeah,
do
man.
anything
That's
else. So
awesome.
thankfully it works.
Yeah, right. Like you actually get to create a living for yourself doing the things that you are best at and love doing, which is I think the dream for a lot of us that I'm just getting started in that journey. And I think a lot of people never quite get there. So Amazing. Well, we've got a lot to talk about, Mike. Are you ready for me to just pelt you with questions the whole time?
Yes, interrogate me, waterboard me, whatever it is we're doing here.
Exactly. It's gonna be the hot seat, but I think you're gonna love it. So, first question for you, Mike, is what is something that you nerd out about?
What do I nerd out about? I definitely nerd out about wine, and uh, because I'm somebody that I can look at a map and I can think like, oh, I know what the wine is going to taste like from that. I was a sommelier and a wine buyer with a
Hmm.
huge budget for a long time, so I really geek out about wine. I'm really into what place does to wine, and I think that wine can be so esoteric, and I think the way that most sommeliers and wine educators approach wine is really a disservice to their customer or their student.
Mm.
And so I've always been obsessed with topographical maps, because I
Hmm.
think if you can see a topographical map and you know where, and you understand the influence of of water and mountains, if you just kind of have a general idea of like what happens near a river, what happens near an ocean, what's it feel like there, if you look at a topographical map of a wine region, you have a pretty good shot of understanding how those wines, if they're made in a style that's of the place, how they
Hmm.
might taste. And so I get super geeked out on that. I love, love, love studying like riverbeds and soil composition, because
Yeah.
it allows me to then interpret it and then communicate that in a way that other people can get. And I could geek out a lot on volcanic wine and talking about what volcanic soil does to wine, because it's super fun.
Mm. Where so I love wine, but I am by no means like a wine connoisseur. I'm kind of like your average person, and I don't know. I know, I know varietals and things like that. But so, what would be an example of a varietal that would be? You mentioned volcanic. Like, what area of the world does that come from, or what's some grapes that are grown near there?
So volcanic areas, like Sicily, is all volcanic. So if you're ever having
Mm,
wine from Sicily, I mean, pretty much the whole island is volcanic, and
yeah.
so that's all volcanic soil. The Balearic Islands off of Spain, you're going to get volcanic soils there.
Mm,
Oregon has a lot of volcanic soil. You're going to get when you're having wine from Oregon, it is going to be volcanic soil, and there's a bunch of other random spots in the world. And what it is it gives it um, a really interesting. It's so strange because most people, you don't think of like minerality because like you don't really taste minerals, but when you travel and you have water, like tap water from different places, it tastes different.
yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure.
Sometimes that's chemicals, sometimes that's how they've cleaned the water or whatever, but a lot of times it is the mineral composition of the water that makes it taste different. And so volcanic wines have a very interesting, I find it to be like a very clean mineral note to it. So it's the same as like water in LA versus water in New York tastes different, sure, because of some of the chemical processing, but mostly it's because of the mineral composition. And that is what volcanic wines are really interesting, because the soil is volcanic ash. I mean, it's not growing in dirt. It's growing in like volcanic lava rocks. It's interesting.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, you're bringing up you're bringing up one of the many, many things that New Yorkers are proud about. You know that we love our water here. We're like, yeah, it's like some of the best. How many times have you heard somebody go, yeah, the New York City tap water is like the best tap water in the country, because it
Like every
supposedly
Airbnb
is.
in New York is like, it's safe to drink the water. We have great tap water in New York. Every Airbnb I've stayed at in New York mentions it. It's like
No, totally.
forget the great restaurant collection and the amazing art and culture. We've got great water pumping out of
I
our
know. It's
pipes.
like we got the Yankees, we got the Giants, we got pizza, and we got good water that you don't have to filter. Like it's so funny that it's like a source of pride here. But it actually, I mean, in all honesty, like it really is good because it comes from I believe it comes from the Adirondacks, and it's supposedly very clear, and they don't have to do a whole lot to it here, which is, I learned something new when I moved here a long time ago. The tap water here is good, so that's good. So one more question about wine for you, at least for this section. If you and I were out at a wine bar right now and we weren't having food, and we were just gonna like, you're gonna be like, hey man, I really want to introduce you to this thing. It's one of my go-tos. What would you recommend? Because I would be the guy who'd be like, Mike, whatever you say goes. Like I'm punting any sort of decision making, and you are the man here. What would you select for us?
I've been really geeked out about I just did this certification, this Spanish wine scholar certification thing, and I'm really geeked out right now about Mencia, which is spelled Mencia. It's red wine from Spain, and a lot of times, if you think red wine from Spain, you're thinking of the wines that are from the Meseta, which is like the flat, kind of hot middle of Spain, that whole middle area. And so red wines are going to be bigger and bolder because they're getting a lot of sun. And we're thinking Rioja, we're thinking Tempranillo, we're thinking those Carignan, those kind of grapes that are bigger, richer, riper. And what I love about Mencia is it's still from that central area, but it's right up towards Galicia, which is the northwestern area above Portugal, which is actually like, if you've ever been there, it's very green, it's very wet, and the people are very like Celtic. Like it feels sometimes like you're in Ireland in ways, because that's who settled it. And then it's over this mountain range, and so it's been largely protected. They're very maritime. And so the wines from over there, that's where Albarino comes from, which a lot of people will know Albarino. It comes from that region, made to go with the seafood there. They have great seafood. And the Mencia, which is a red grape that's going to play closest to like a Pinot Noir. That is from just on the other side of the mountain range that separates Galicia from the rest of Spain. So it's still getting some of that cool maritime influence, but it's still getting enough heat that it's producing a really cool red. And so I would say we'd have that, because most people have not had it, and more cool wine bars are mentioning it. So look for a Mencia. It might also be called Bierzo, Bierzo. That's like the area. So that's what I would have, because you probably never had it.
Nope, I've definitely never had that. The only thing I recognize in any of that was Tempranillo. Is the only thing that you said. Yeah. I need more sommeliers, people that know about wine in my life, because I'm like, hey, this is pretty good. Like, yeah, this is good. And then the more I drink, the more I'm like, oh, this is really good.
Yeah, and you know what I think people need? People need more sommeliers who can talk like normal people, because it's so difficult. You know, you go somewhere and they're talking about like, oh, this tastes like the fresh dew on a lily pad on an autumn morning in the south side of France, and it's like, I've never been there, so I don't know what that is. And like, you know, a red wine descriptor will sometimes be like, oh, it tastes like a currant. Who the hell has ever eaten a currant? Like,
I know, exactly.
Like, people don't know those words, and so how can we make it actually approachable? And there's this snobbery about it that actually I think makes it more fearful to try wine. And so my approach was always to make wine really fun. We used to do classes. This is back in 2007 when I was a sommelier and wine trainer for like 80 restaurant group. And I would do classes with the servers, and we would do celebrity and wine pairings. So we would be like, okay, this wine is like a George Clooney. So it's kind of like, and people would then pick it out. They're like, oh yeah, it's like a little leathery but rich, and it's got like some tobacco, and it feels like and it's like, yeah, that's exactly it. And so I think that if wine was approached in a much more normal way, people would have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. That would be a funny thing to do, to go to a place and troll somebody, be like, you know, like when you're like the dew of a morning on a lily pad. I'm like, so what does that taste like? So how often have you gone to a an autumn morning in France and licked a lily pad to see what the dew tastes like? Like nobody ever. Do you lick it
or bite it? And does it taste different if you bite it, or should I just do this? And what do you? It's really like, how do you even know that? But the real secret to wine, and this is what people don't talk about a lot, especially even in the sommelier world, people don't talk about the real secret to passing the test and getting the certification and being good at wine is actually memorization. Like, I have an okay palate, but I have an amazing memory. Because why memory helps is that if I had a wine from a certain place in Sicily and I understood what slope it was on and that kind of thing, then I would know, okay, that's what that wine tastes like from that place. If someone wine tasted and gave me another wine from that place, it's not my knowledge of details and my ability to taste something necessarily. That helps. What really helps is my remembering what the last wine I had like from Sicily was. And it's memory that actually helped me survive in that world more than having a brilliant palate. It was saying, wait, what is this? Where is it from? Okay, this is what that tastes like. I'm going to lock that away. And when I try it again, I'll remember this.
Yeah, nice. Thanks, Mike. That is a cool thing to nerd out about. I wish I nerded out more about wine, but I...
And we clearly did. You asked me one question, and I've talked about wine for 15 minutes.
I mean, I would imagine that most people listening to this will enjoy that conversation, because most people that I know like wine. Most people.
And if someone out there goes and they actually say, like, if somebody says like, oh yeah, it tastes like cat pee on a wet lily pad, and you actually say like, well, what kind of cat? Is it like a diabetic cat? Is the cat healthy? Which kind of cat? If you do that, please message me on my website or socials, because I want.
It'd be amazing. Like what? Yeah, like was the cat dehydrated? Did it have too much water? Yeah, totally. Like what age of the cat? Like this, I feel like there's like an amazing like improv scene that could be created from like the sommelier who's nose in the air, and then you're like and actually make it a real life thing where they're like all the things they're describing are actually like things you would actually do or that people do all the time. Like it's like, oh yeah, like I actually had a really great dew off a lily pad. It was actually in the afternoon, so it wasn't quite as moist as in this morning, but that would be
right. It had some evaporative qualities from the sun, and and like the cat pee one, I could just imagine it being like, actually, this one is from a cat named Franz. Franz is 11 years old, and he's pre-diabetic, and so his urine is sweeter than a normal cat. You'll notice it in the way that you can taste the ketones.
Yes, and this bottle, and that's why this bottle is 3 times the price of this other bottle we're showing.
But I think I say that storytelling is a super. Even my obsession with storytelling came into wine, because wine sells on story. Most people don't actually know the difference. It sells on story.
No, totally. That's good. Well, I'm going to move us along only because I feel like we could probably do this for the next hour and a half, and we'll have fun. But maybe people get bored with it. So we're going to actually learn some more stuff about you, if that's okay. Well, even if it's not okay, you have a choice. I guess you can hang up, or you got that. You're gonna get the question. So I'm gonna give you the question. So Mike, what is something that is inside of your comfort zone that might be outside of somebody else's?
I'm really comfortable walking in front of a room of people and being myself. I often stand out because I don't get fidgety and nervous. I don't put up a fourth wall that separates us. I'm really okay being Mike Ganino in front of people, and that scares a lot of people. I don't scare them, but it scares people to do that for themselves.
Well, you might scare them too. You don't know that. You might scare people. I don't know. You didn't scare me, but it's possible.
Could be.
Yeah, no, that's a really good one, because a common one's like, oh, public speaking, but yeah, like public speaking, But I think what you're saying is actually something that very few people are comfortable doing. Is like a lot of people are comfortable getting up and doing their thing, but they're like performing from like a way they should be, or they're like they've been told to do certain things, and you're just like up there like just doing your thing. Is like literally is like, I'm Mike. Here's me. I'm going to deliver however I'm going to deliver it, and you're going to like it. So I think that is my experience of you, and I think that makes you a bit of a unicorn. That there's not many people that I know that really can like be the performer and be authentic at the same time, and just be like, this is all of me, and it's going to be entertaining, and it's going to be great because I know I'm enough. Because I think the thing is like most people like, I'm not enough. I talk too fast. I talk too slow. My body language, like my content stinks, and like you're just like up there delivering it. Like I'm sure you have those moments, but overall, like that was my experience of you as well.
Yeah, it's really funny. I really don't have those moments. Like maybe I'm missing a chip or something, but I don't have those. I have lots of other moments, but I don't have those moments. I feel I really trust myself, and I trust that if I'm me up there, it's really going to work. And it's not because the content is so great or anything. It's because most people, you hit it right on the head, Jason. Most people are so scared to show up as themselves that when I do, it really doesn't matter what I'm talking about. It's freeing to them in a way. Not because I'm so amazing, but because they think maybe I can have a little of that for myself. And I feel like that's my currency in this world, is that moment.
Yeah. And I think we'll get into this a little bit later, and as we learn kind of like where you came from, but has this always been something? Well, you know what? I'm actually going to save this question for a little bit later.
Cool.
So I'm going to flip the script on you now, and we're going to talk about something that is outside of your comfort zone, that is inside of somebody else's. And I'm going to scratch one thing off the list, and that's deliverables and consulting, because that is something that's a freebie. So like I've had people be like, well, it's the thing that I said 2 things ago. I'm like, no, that's not good enough. So I'm going to scratch off deliverables. So yeah, what's something else that's outside of your comfort zone that's inside of somebody else's?
One of the new things that I'm really realizing is I'm working on. I feel this pressure to be like, oh, I'm going to do an online course, and the online course is going to have this thing, and there's going to be this funnel to that funnel and this, and it really stops me from taking any action, because it's just not how I think. It's when I doubt myself when I do it. I'm a responder. I put me in front of someone and let me see what they need and I will deliver. But to sit at home and think through a funnel and this and that, I'm not one, it gets in my head and I overthink it. And two, I'm a really horrible boss for myself. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that other people are probably really inside of their comfort zone of like, I could sit down and I can work through a to-do list and I can plow ahead and get stuff done.
Yeah.
I'm really, really bad at that. And so sometimes when those are the things I need to do, my progress is like very, very slow. And
Yeah.
that's the place actually where I get self-conscious and nervous, not in front of a stadium of people. So it's like
Yeah.
a lot of other people are super comfortable hacking away, thinking through the systems, and it's just not, I just move really slowly with it.
I think what I'm hearing in all this is you're just a leading man. You're the leading man in the movie, in the Oscar-winning movie, and then you get to go to your trailer, and then everybody else takes care of everything else for you, which is great. I think if that's your thing, that's fantastic.
It's great if you can set your life up that way. I've not yet figured that out, so I'm working on it so that I don't end up back in the trailer park.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll see you on Instagram in a couple weeks. You'll be like, "This is my brand new, not virtual assistant, but physical assistant who's like
Yeah.
here with me."
I don't think I
Like,
could.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think I could do a virtual assistant. I think I would need someone. I just signed a lease this week for an office space, and which will mostly be set up like a video studio with a couple of different
yeah.
sets.
Nice.
And when the time comes to have an assistant, it will be a human being who's like, "Hey, I need an assistant who's my boss. That's what I need."
Yeah. Well, it's like this reminds me. Did you ever watch Friends growing up?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Do you remember the episode where Joey like actually starts to make it as an actor and he hires Chandler as as his assistant? And
Yeah,
Chandler's like actually like the way more like he was an accountant and then he worked in advertising. And I remember Joey's like, I need an orange juice. And he was like Chandler's like running around being Joey's personal assistant. I'm
yeah.
like, oh, this is gonna end well. Two like best friends who are then gonna suddenly work for the other one. And then and it obviously didn't end well. For those of you who haven't seen Friends, first of all, I
Spoiler
don't know what to
alert.
tell you. It's 25 years old now, but yeah, that's funny. I'm picturing maybe you could find somebody to go get you orange juice and
Getting the orange juice
for
is
you.
great. I could do the orange juice if they could just set up the funnels and make me show up to work and make me record the videos that I've dreamed up. Because I like this crazy visionary thing of like, yes, we're gonna do this and this and this. But then it's like, okay, you need to sit down and do a video, and I'm like, well, wait. And it's like, just do the dang thing. But I don't. So yeah,
Yeah,
I admire people like that.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Funny. So you are a speaker. You're obviously a speaker now. You've been a speaker. So I think this next question will be right in your wheelhouse. So I give you 5 minutes and you get to deliver a speech to the world. And we're not going to talk about the logistics of that because I had one of my guests who's like, well, how would that work? And not everybody speaks English. And I'm like, no, we're not talking about the logistics. It's magic. Everybody has a translator and everybody has the internet and you can deliver a speech to the world. So Mike, what would you give your speech on and why?
My speech to the world would be about how I think from birth to death, the real challenge of life, the real challenge of business, the real challenge of relationships is not to become more, not to be better. I really, really struggle with these be a better version of you quotes because I think it's wrong. I think the
Mm-hmm.
real challenge is that we need to strip away everything that is not us to actually be who we really are. We need to get rid of the fourth wall. We need to get rid of the filters. And that the real challenge of life, the real challenge of relationships and business and being on stage, being off stage is to strip away everything that is not you. Because we all
Mm-hmm.
start wearing these costumes and we all start getting into a form of drag that we think is what's the acceptable version. I mean, we are as children, we realize that sometimes adults lie and we're told
Oh
like,
yeah.
don't lie, don't do this. And you start to realize that. And it makes you, I think from a very young age, start to doubt your intuition. And so we start to build up a fourth wall. We start to build up armor. We start to put on drag to become a version of ourselves that we think is acceptable. And I think the real challenge of life, of everything, is to strip away everything that is not you because you is actually in there. We don't need to find our voice. We didn't lose it.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to do is chip away everything that's not our voice. That would be my talk.
That's beautiful, man. That's awesome. Do you give that? Is that a speech you actually give? Like obviously longer than 5 minutes, but is that part of the content that you've delivered or you will be delivering?
Yeah, so it's That side is definitely the newer stuff that I'm moving into. It's been part of my work. I give a talk called Storycraft, and I gave a talk for a long time called Story Culture, which was about how the stories inside of organizations are ultimately what we do. So we need to inspire new ones, and that was a lot of that. Of like, as a leader, what do we want from you? We want you to be real. We want to know about times when things were broken, and so it's definitely been a piece of that. I think 2020 it's a much stronger that is the Mike Ganino message to the world. It becomes the headline thing.
Yeah, gotcha. Cool. Thanks for sharing that. And next, this is the part of the show where I like to just hear about your journey. So we're here in early 2020, and you've had an interesting life, just like we've all had an interesting life. So this is where the part where you get to share, your journey, anything you want to share about what led you to today. And by today, not meaning just here on the podcast, obviously. Although I've had guests that are like, "You mean like today, like on the podcast? What led me here?" I'm like, "Sure." And there's probably more to the story than just like being on a podcast in the middle of January. And then also, this is it. This is like, this is it. This is what my life has been to this point. This is my life's mission, is to be on Jason's podcast. And then also anything that you're up to. So yeah, Mike, give us your journey to today and what you're up to.
So I spoke a bit about that at the top of the show in kind of my move from trailer park to podcasting with Jason. I along the way I've done lots of different things, and I've always been driven to lead, not from a perspective of wanting to be the leader, but in realizing that I often see something in other people that they don't see, and I often can assess what's needed in a situation. And so for me, the draw to leadership roles was often not about wanting to be in charge of things. I actually don't want to be in charge of many things at all. It was about realizing that so often people are filtering everything again through things that are not actually who they are. And so you end up, when you've watched people have a conversation, you're like, oh, neither one of you is actually being you. And if you were, you'd probably solve this. I think that my path to leadership, my journey to leadership in different ways has always been about that, about how can I be helpful in stripping away some of the things that everyone seems to be wearing. And so whether that was in the restaurant industry, whether that was leading an improv troupe, whether that was becoming a wine educator or being a speaker, being a partner at a public speaking company, or doing what I'm doing next, it's really always been about how can I influence people to strip away the layers that aren't helping them. And where do I go next with that? I'm getting ready to launch my first kind of online experience, which will be largely like a group coaching kind of thing, and starting to do small group retreats, which will actually, some of them will be in wine country because it's my retreat, so why not do it in wine country? And working on that, really working and building a community of people that are stripping away the stuff, breaking the fourth wall, and showing up in the world, because I think we need more of that.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. I mean, wine country and plus an amazing retreat led by you sounds amazing.
Isn't that fun? Like to go into, and I think people want more of that. I think that there's so many online courses, and I feel like a lot of people are starting to move away from wanting that, and they want this hybrid experience. And so that's what I've started thinking about, is how can I do something like that? How can I do a retreat that is like undeniably, unapologetically me, and it will bring the right people in who want to be part of that? And so the wine, even my podcast, I have a podcast called The Mic Drop Moment, and we do 2 episodes a week. One is on Monday with a guest that I'm interviewing and talking to. And then the Wednesday episodes are Wine and Wisdom Wednesdays with just me. And I'm just teaching things. And each of those episodes I actually pair with wine. And I thought, well, it makes no sense at all, but I like wine, and why not pair education with wine? Because it's fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So besides the retreat, are you still doing any speaking? So I know you're doing more things local to California. Are you doing any sort of local speaking or anything like that?
Yeah, so I'm still doing, some of the event work. Last year in 2019, I did almost 200,000 miles on American Airlines alone. And
Yeesh.
yeah. And
That's
it was
not
something
great.
that I'd always wanted to do, and I did it. And I think that I had that experience and I'm done with that. And so now, and it really was unsettling to me. I think a lot of people, that's a very exciting life and they get that and they want that and they do it. For me, I got depressed. I was really depressed
Mm.
away from home. Like there were months where I only slept in my own bed 2 nights.
Oh man.
And so I got really depressed. I was really lonely, a lot of it. And I just realized like, oh, this isn't really what I wanted. And
Mhm.
so I did it, and I did it at such a high level. And now for for 2020 and beyond, I'm definitely out there still doing some corporate speeches and doing events. I'll go to someone else's event and speak on their stage, but I'm a lot more selective about it
Yeah.
as I'm opting for that not to be the main way that I make a living. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, wanting to do my own events here in Southern California is partially selfish. I don't want to get on airplanes and travel. I want to go deeper with people, spend 3 days really working through some stuff so they leave a version of themselves that is stripped away of all the stuff that's not them. And so,
Yeah.
why not? And people love to come to California, luckily. So I
Yeah.
live in a place that's like a good vacation destination
Yeah.
for retreat style events.
Yeah. And you missed one key point. You get to drink a lot of wine while doing it.
Isn't that great?
That sounds amazing.
I was
That
actually
is
talking
it's amazing.
with for doing one of them. One of the things I want to try is having it include a photo shoot. So actually bringing in a photographer, and each person in the retreat gets like a photo shoot in wine country. There's like the place I would take them to also has like an Old Town area, and so also like a photo shoot in Old Town. So you leave with like a month's worth of like social content or something if you want it as well. And I just think how fun to be like, oh, I'm outside in the winery in the Old Town, having a good time and loving life.
Incredible. Incredible. I also want to give you a plug that something you didn't mention is you are a new, and I don't know if you've done it in the past, but you are also a new fellow podcaster. I think you released maybe if I'm not mistaken in December, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you also have a really amazing podcast. It's just come out recently. It's taken off and everybody give it a listen. It's really great. Mic drop moment.
Yeah, we launched in the beginning of December with 2 episodes a week, talking about storytelling, talking about speaking, talking about business, talking about figuring out how to be unapologetically ourselves in the world, which I think the world needs more of. And so, yeah, it's been really fun. 2 episodes a week, and we're chugging along and getting that out there.
Question for you. I have set an intention and I don't see any reason I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do 100 episodes this year, and it sounds like you are as well. When I tell
Yeah, it'll
people
be
that,
literally being that way. Wow. I didn't
yeah,
think about
well,
that.
yeah. When I tell people that, they're like, "Whoa, that's crazy!" Like I'm in some podcasting like groups on Facebook of varying like skills and levels and people in their podcasting journey, and like I saw somebody else posted like I did 100 episodes, and like the people were like, "Oh my god, that's insane!" And it doesn't feel that challenging to me, but it might be because like it was funny. There was somebody I was reading them, and like somebody had posted a question. It was like a mastermind. They're like, how much time do you spend per episode? And the person's like, well, I spend 1 hour recording, and I spend about 8 hours editing, and then I spend another 6 hours in the marketing, and I do my social. And I'm like, how is that possible to spend 15 hours an episode between like the marketing is like, okay, you write a blog, you do your social stuff, maybe you're doing Facebook ads, I don't know. And the editing I know can take some time, but like, I don't see how it's possible to spend 15 hours on a 1 hour episode. Like, do you see that as being possible? Because I don't imagine how I could spend that time.
I mean, I don't. I guess I do, because the first 6 episodes of the mic drop moment I edited on my own, and it's a full like audio theater experience. Like I am cutting it up, I am editing it. There's music throughout it. There's sound effects. I'm chopping the interview up into fit this specific narrative framework that I designed for it, and so the first 6 episodes I edited on my own because I couldn't find anyone who would do it at that level that I wanted
Hmm.
and could do it thinking the same way I would think, thinking about music and what goes with what's being talked about so that it was a full experience. I couldn't find anyone. And so I was spending like 7 hours editing, and I didn't do any of the social, but I see that like if I had chopped those up into mini videos and did the audiogram thing and then did a blog post and did some social planning, like I could have creeped up to 15 for sure. But I realized that I also don't have sponsors, and I don't want sponsors for a
Mm-hmm.
really long time, unless I can make like a full-time living on the sponsorship. It's not worth it to me.
Oh
And
yeah, right.
so I realized that that wasn't the best use of my 8 hours of time. I wasn't making any money doing that, and was becoming a distraction. And so I had to leave. But 15 hours, I could see it if you were doing some really crazy editing like I was, and you were doing some really, really thoughtful, like SEO packed social, then I could see you
Yeah.
easily creeping up there. But I don't know that it's worth it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's not like you're Mark Maron or Joe Rogan or something. Like, I mean, maybe you and I will both be in that place someday, and then at some point you have sponsors who are paying you, and then you just pay somebody else to do that. But yeah,
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 it's
I
like
don't
one of
know.
those things
Yeah,
like if you're at the level that you are making enough money to have that be your full-time job, then you're probably at the level where you personally don't need to spend 15 hours doing anything.
exactly. You're just like you're literally just the entertainment.
Yeah,
You're like the famous actor or host. You're like the Jimmy Fallon of podcasting. You show up at your desk and you have funny interviews and entertain people, and then you leave and go, "Hey, go deal with all the crap."
exactly. That's fun.
Awesome, Mike. Well, thanks for sharing all that. You're obviously up to a lot of cool stuff. I have no doubt that
Thanks.
I mean, wine and retreats sounds phenomenal. So, so this is definitely not going to be a challenge for you, but some of my guests, I'm going to put myself in the hot seat. So I'm virtually switching seats with you, and you get to ask me anything you'd like. It can really be you can ask me anything you'd like. I will answer almost anything. And so, yeah, like Mike, what would you like to ask me about myself that I can share with you and with the audience?
So I'm really interested. You are a coach. You coach a lot of talented, smart people.
I
And so I'm
do.
curious, Jason, has there been a coaching experience that you've had that actually that you were the coach that really changed you? That through the process of
Oh,
coaching someone else, you actually came out the other side and said, "Wow, I really see the world differently now."
oh man, yeah, totally. So my ideal clients and the kind of clients I attract are, and it's a weird thing that I don't have like a specific niche, and I'm like I only work with these people because as you know, you probably worked with coach and you do coaching work yourself in the realm that you're a specialization in. Um, but I find that I attract really like high achieving, smart millennials, and I'm actually not a millennial; I'm a Gen Xer, and man, I learned a ton from all of them. Like I'm not all of my clients are in that space, but I have, I have a couple clients that are 26, 27, and I just learned that there's a different way of thinking. And the thing that I would say to Gen Xers, and I believe I can't remember, Mike, you're a Gen Xer, right? Barely. I
I'm
don't
an
actually know the
old
cutoff.
millennial. I'm the
You're an
oldest
old
millennial.
millennial. You're an old millennial. I have a saying I like to say to a couple of my friends from millennials. I'm like, I call them effing millennials just because it's like funny because I feel like an old man saying it. But no, I actually love millennials. And what I found it's a good group of people for me to work with because so much more than my generation is like, oh, figure it out on your own. Like you just, like you don't need anybody. Like you just go and do the thing. What I'm learning is that the millennials that I work with, and they're like well educated, you know, generally work at really good companies, climbers, those sort of things, that they actually see the value in other people, whether it be going to heroic public speaking to learn how to be some of the best speakers in the world, whether it be going to a retreat that Mike's putting on to learn how to be authentically yourself, whether it's working with Jason to learn how to like increase your leadership and executive confidence skills, whatever it is, like they're actually, a lot of them are actually like open to that. And for me, like I don't, if somebody would have said to me like, hey, like you're going to this retreat and learn to be authentically you, I'd be like, I don't need that crap. Like what? I'm just going to be myself, but it not actually be myself. So the thing that I'm learning is specifically to the around those kind of people is like the openness to growth and to constantly improving their self. And also not the thing that struck me, Mike, that I've learned so much from is it's not always about performance of like, oh, so then get promoted so I can make more money so that I can have my next business success. It's like the idea of like, I just want to show up as a better person, which leads right into the kind of work you're doing. Is like, I just want to be a better person, and realizing that being a better person actually equates to business success, financial success, relationship success. So I think that's like I've never had that question before. That's really good. I think generally what's so cool about coaching, and my guess would be your experience of doing all the, kind of the leadership work in front of the room or working in smaller groups, is like you get to learn. Like you're watching a speaker, you're like, oh, I really like what that person did. I really like the movement they did. I might use that in my repertoire. But I've got a speech that could do it. And so, I mean, honestly, man, like I tell my clients that like I'm learning from them all the time. And I'm learning the other thing that's been a real breakthrough for me, just to get a little vulnerable for a minute. The other thing that I've learned is, and I've talked a lot about this in the show, is I spent, 19 years in technology sales. So I spent a lot of time around people just like me. And what I mean is like men, male dominated industries, driven salespeople, selling technology, understand technology, customer facing. And it's awesome. But I wasn't really, it wasn't a very diverse environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't spend a lot of time with people from different walks of life. And one of the things that I've learned through both being in a coach, going through a coaching program with a very diverse group of people that I now all consider dear friends of mine, going to Hero Public Speaking is another place where I learned to be in a room with, like the thing we had in common was we all were interested in speaking and, delivering messages to the world in some sort of format. And now with coaching clients, like I'm realizing that like it really what's hit me and what's been a breakthrough for me is like I'm professed very judgmental. I'll be the first to say it. I'm a very judgmental person at my core. And so like, why isn't that person doing that thing? Like it's so easy, they should be doing it. Or like, why are they not doing this thing? Like, oh, somebody wants to start a podcast, they should just go do it because that's like my ease of greatness. And realizing like we're all so different. And that the thing that feels so like, I mean, you're a perfect example. You're like, oh, I can get up on any stage and just be myself. Like, dude, that's like such not a thing that most people have, including myself. And I'm pretty comfortable getting on stage, but I'm not fully comfortable being myself on stage. So realizing like we all have these things that we like, that we think are like so easy for us that are so
Mm-hmm.
difficult for other people. And like meeting, and for me, like the breakthrough in my coaching and I'm always trying to improve that part of, it's how I make a living. So I'm always working on improving that, is just learning how to meet people where they are. And that just because it's easy for me or I have a judgment that they should, like we call it, it's funny, there's this thing, it's like you keep shoulding all over yourself. Like I should do this, I should do that, I should be, it's like I should have this kind of job, I should make this kind of money. And like realizing like, hey, like people are just people, we're all imperfect, and we all are things that we're really good at, and then we're all have things that we're struggling with, even if you don't see it on the outside. And that's one of the great things about coaching, is you get to know people so well, because they bring, it always generally starts with like, hey, I could use a coach, I really want some coaching around, my career to get promoted or make more money. And then like within like an hour, you're like, oh, so how does that show up in your dating life? They're like, oh my God. And then you end up spending, like you end up getting to know people as just as human beings, because that's all we all are, obviously. So yeah, just learning from clients about everybody's different. Everybody's got different drivers. And it's actually the thing I've learned too, is like, it's all okay as long as it's authentic, which is never something I thought about before. So,
And when you say you didn't
thank you
think
for
of
the
it
question. Yeah.
when you say you didn't think of it before, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So what I mean by that is working in sales. You're like, why do you work in sales? Like, is there anybody who's like, I love selling software. My life, I was put here on this earth to sell software. Probably, maybe. And yes, software does a world of good. And we're using software right now, and you use software and we all use it. And it's great. It makes our life easier and just think, but I would be challenged to find somebody whose life's purpose is to sell software for another company. So what I mean by that is that just being like, it's okay where you are. And I don't know, I'm almost losing my train of thought here. So you've caused me to think deeply, Mike. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you and F you at the same time.
When you think of, let me ask a different way then. When you think of, you're plodding along in your life, you're doing tech sales, or you're doing whatever, whoever's out there listening to this, you're doing whatever it is you do every day inside of your vacuum, your bubble, you're existing in that. And then you create little rules. It sounds like little rules around how the world works, how things happen.
Yeah.
And then something comes in to shift that. What do you think is the initial impetus? Is it just that you were a good person and you're like, oh my God, there's another world out here? Or did something actually shake you up a little bit to say, wait a second, I am seeing someone I admire, or I'm seeing someone I think is cool, and wow, they think differently. Do you remember that moment?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're, yeah, I've shared this on the show before. I'll share it again, and you're gonna you're gonna love this. This is so perfect that you and I are having this conversation. And I'll just share the beginning of the journey that led us to today. So in June of 2018, it was actually May of 2018. And Mike, you're gonna love this. I went to a storytelling class at General Assembly.
Yay.
Yay, storytelling! Because I was like, hey, like storytelling's cool, and like I can use it in my sales work, and I'm interested in it. I like communicating. And the teacher there, who's since become a friend of mine, we were talking, and we actually caught up on the phone. I'm like, hey, like I feel like there's something that I want to explore. I don't know if it's a midlife crisis. I don't know if it's just more like there's more to me than like just doing what I'm doing for a living. He's like, yeah. He's like, have you ever tried improv? And I'm like, no, but it's funny you mentioned that because a couple of years ago I was going to do it with my wife. We just never did it. But I'm like, I'm not an actor. I've never done it. And he's like, yeah. He's like, you should take the intro to improv class at the Pit. I'm like, oh, cool. It's like $200, 4 weeks, super low stakes, a bunch of complete F ups who've never done improv in a level 0 class. And so we're in the class. So I said yes to that. I went and did it. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, I can see where this is going to relate to my sales job and use this in like leadership and everything. And then we're at the end of the first class. The teacher, amazing. Her name is Taryn. She's made it. Hi, Taryn. She'll be on the show here shortly. She's like, hey guys. And the other thing is like, if you, if like, and I forget her exact words, but it's along the lines of like, hey, if you're, like looking to talk to anybody about, like what you want to create in your life, like I'm a coach. And I'm like, it was like my hold my beer moment where I'm like, coach, like, oh, I've heard about this thing. I don't really know exactly what it is, but it sounds interesting. So we had a call and we did a session. I'm like, oh, I want to hire her. So I hired her as my coach. And I didn't really like, people are like, oh, you're a coach now. Like, you must love coaching. I'm like, I didn't really know anything about it a year and a half ago. And so I hired her, and and she's a really powerful, really experienced coach. And through the work that we did together, like uncovered like this whole other side of me that that allowed me, and what I mean allowed me is like allowed myself permission to be authentic, to be like, I want to do heroic public speaking. I want to go join a coaching program. I want to do my own thing someday, and like gave me the permission to be like, and I think you probably identify this from the work that you do with others and maybe about yourself at some point, is like, I had this really specific story about myself that I was this thing. I was a sales guy and I did startup stuff and it was cool and I could make good money and I was going to ride it out to the end of my career. And like, that was my destiny and that was my journey. And then through my work with her, it's like, oh, like what's actually possible for me that I can someday do something crazy, like start a podcast out of nowhere or stand up a coaching business and go get clients that I love. Like a year ago, even I think HPS is actually the start of my journey of like, oh, like this is actually anything's possible that I want to actually create if I put my energy and my authenticity behind it. And so, yeah, like that was my start. It wasn't like watching one person, but it was like the idea of like, oh, I went to a storytelling class and then I took an improv class and then here we are today. So I thought you would love that it was all about storytelling and improv that led us to today. Yeah.
And what was the hardest piece of that? Yeah. Because that sales version of you was a version of drag. It's like we're all in drag every day. We're like born naked. Like RuPaul said, you're born naked, the rest is drag. I totally believe it. So it was like a version of drag. What was the hardest piece of that to take off?
It's easy and well, it's not easy. Sales isn't easy, but it's comfortable. I know how to do it. I've done it for a long time, and the money's decent. So the hardest part for me was, okay, if I'm not going to do this and I make this amount doing this stuff, what else can I do that's actually going to be fun and fulfilling and authentic to what I want to create in the world that's going to pay me something similar? Like it doesn't have to be exactly the same. But so for me, like and this is the other thing that I am always fighting against is having a scarcity mindset. Mm-hmm. Like, so this is something I work on with my clients. It's something that I struggle with, and I have it all the time still because working in sales, like you work with a scarcity mindset most of the time because you're like, how do I get my next customer? And what are they going to pay me? And I have a quota every quarter. And, you worked in the restaurant industry, like you have, numbers to hit and you have a slow season or something. It's like, oh crap, our investors are going to, they're going to fire me or like, we're not going to make the money we need, like all the returns. So yeah, like for me, the hardest part, and, I'm still in process of this. I'm not perfect or complete around this or anything, is like, is it possible for me to create all these amazing things I want to do in the world and actually do the things like be on stages and speak to people and coach clients for more and more money, and like create more and more breakthroughs for them, to have a successful podcast, to, all the things that I want to create. Like, is it actually possible? And that was been the story, is like, no, it's not possible because you know how to do this thing, and that's your story, and that's your identity. And it's been a total work in progress, and it's also been, I've been in flow, a pretty good flow for the last probably 7 months or so. And I look back now, and I'm having a conversation with one of my coaching friends, and she's like, do you know how much you've created this year? And I'm like, no, I don't think so. And she's like, let me list these things off for you that you've done this year that a year ago. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that's impressive when you say it that way. Because like, I don't know if you struggle with this. One thing that I have a very hard time with is celebrating my wins and giving myself credit,
Yeah.
because I'm so driven that it's always like, yeah, I did this. Like, people have come to me like, dude, your podcast is so good, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know, like, it's just a little old thing I put out there. I'm like, no, it's not really. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of heart, and a lot of authenticity. So those are the things that I'm working on with
Nice.
for myself, and also my coach too. So yeah, thank you for the question. That was good.
Thanks.
I've thought about those things, but I've never shared them publicly. So maybe I'll just turn the reins over to you, and you can just get me vulnerable the rest of the time. No, never mind. No, this is
My
about you.
my natural interviewer came out there. Sorry.
No, it's fantastic. Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate the questions. And I always like to let the audience know who I am. It's like, we're talking about authenticity today, and like, this is me. I'm not perfect. I'm not even perfect. Like, I'm just who I am, and I'm in process just like everybody else out there. Just like you're in process in a lot of things, like setting up sales funnels.
No, no, I'm stripping it away. I'm realizing that that I don't need to. That at the end of the day, I need to find ways to do things that work for me. And so I'm
Yeah.
trying to break my addiction to needing to do that to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think yeah, and that's such a good point. Is like, I get caught up in that too, and for me, like, setting up technology is actually really easy for me. But
Yeah.
I get very caught up in the, that they call, like, the big shiny object thing of like, oh, what's the next tool that I can use to like automate processes and set up online courses? I'm like, yeah, I could do that, but it just feels like a lot. And is it really what I want to put out in the world? So yeah, and it's a constant process of learning about myself, learning what I want to create. And what I am finding though is, like, when I'm authentic, man, like, the world's my oyster. When I start to like think I start shooting all over myself, or I start thinking like, oh, like, there's a shiny object and some technology that's supposed to build you more leads, or get you more clients. That's when it like doesn't feel good. And I'd really try and take a step back, like, what do you actually want to do? What do you actually want to create? When I'm in that
Yeah.
space, that's when the world comes to me. It's like, it's so crazy. And this is, and like you said, we're probably going to get woo woo. This is another thing that I didn't mention. Like, I am so not a woo woo person. Like, I'm like the, like, operational, like, what's the logistics? How do we solve problems? What's the strategy to get this done? And I'm just having this huge breakthrough over the last year through the work with my coach, and like, coaching people is like a breakthrough. And like, I call, like spirit, not like religious spirit, but like spirit and energy. And like you said it earlier, like, raising your vibrations, like, around things like, when you're speaking, what's your vibration? When you're coaching a client, when you're on a podcast, what are your vibrations? So this is where we get a little woo woo. Like, these are all things that I am having breakthroughs around. Like, oh, this stuff actually matters. Cause I like, dude, like, if you'd have been like, hey, your vibrations are not great right now, I'd be like, what the F are you talking about? Like, what, who cares? No, let me go do
Well,
something.
and it's so funny too, because it is easy to think that, and this is where I'm going to self-select, and some people in this audience are going to be like, Mike is not for me. But the reality is, like, you can feel it when you walk into a room. If you go to a dinner party and you walk into the dinner party and the couple has been fighting with each other, you could feel that energy. Like, it is not. There's actual scientific proof, even though we're like at a war with science in a lot of ways sometimes, but there's scientific proof about, like, things are actually vibrating at different frequencies. Like, that is not
Yeah.
I guess everything is debatable today, but it's not really debatable. Like, everything at the atomic level, at some molecular level, is vibrating, sound waves, and all of those things are actually moving. And we are as well. And our bodies are like 70% water. And this is
Totally.
where it gets really woo-woo. Like the tides are moving around because of the moon. Like there's
Hmm.
some stuff going on that we don't know about. And I just think
Totally.
like the more in tune we get with our own body and our own selves, like that can't be a bad thing.
No. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm, it's a process of discovery in my natural mode. My natural, when I'm in, like pressure, stress, scarcity, whatever it is, to be like, yeah, forget all that stuff. What do I need to do today? But then when I actually take, like, I'll give you an example, and then we're going to move it back to you, because this is too much talking about me. But I just realized that you sneaky, very sneaky. Like for me, I'm like very high energy. My brain is moving a million miles a minute all the time. Why I talk fast and all that stuff. But I've actually taken on meditation this year,
Oh,
and like
nice.
I'd meditate every day for 20 minutes, and it's glorious. And I'm not saying, I'm not like sitting there like, and like my brain is clear. It's not like that. I'm thinking about things, but my body is still, which is not a natural state for me. And even like the little act for me of, yeah, meditating 20 minutes a day, it's not a huge deal, but even like giving myself the permission to be like, hey man, this is something you can create for yourself that's actually going to be beneficial, and doing it has been super awesome. So I'm like discovering all these little new areas that I can up my game from like a woo woo perspective, as opposed to like what's the next technology, what's the next technique I can use to do something, and just like being myself and like giving myself the permission to explore those things.
Well, and it's so funny too because that the meditation gets this woo-woo vibe because we think of like running away to an ashram or meeting some Zen Buddhist monks, but meditation again is another thing that is like scientifically, medically proven to change your brain chemistry, to like
That's right.
alter your hormones. And so we get sick, people get sick and the first thing they do is like run off to medicine and science, but we don't actually stop and think about, no, meditation is not about sitting in a room with candles and like
No,
namasteing yourself to death. It actually is
no.
scientifically proven. I do transcendental meditation, which
Hmm.
is like Vedic meditation. It's based on like a mantra. And I just was talking to my mom, and she was saying, "Oh, I said, what is one of the things that you think if you could do it consistently, it could change your life?" And she said, meditate." And I said, "Okay, well, why don't you?" And she's like, "Oh, it's so hard," and blah blah blah. And I said, "Well, what if you got rid of the rule that meditation was about absence of thought? What if you
Totally.
got rid of the rule that you need to sit there and
Totally.
have no thought? What if it was about instead saying, 'Oh, I'm having a thought. Look at that. Okay, anyway, back to center.'" And you realize that it's actually your mind's job to wander, and it is your job in
Totally.
those instances to get mindful of what your mind's doing and bring it back to center. It's totally okay to let your mind wander then. And I just
Oh yeah.
it changed my life. I do 20 minutes 2 times a day, 20 minutes transcendental
Hmm.
meditation, and otherwise I'd be a total anxiety prone nut job out here, I think.
Yeah, we have friends who do transcendental. I don't know if you probably have this in LA. There's actually a place you can go here to learn how to do it. Like I
Yeah.
don't know if it's a school or a 4-week workshop or something, but they
Yeah.
they swear by it, and they're both like, super successful, high energy people who never really did meditation, and have like, oh, like the change. I don't know that they would say like a totally changed their life, but they love it and they make it a point to do it every single day.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, like Oprah, Howard Stern, Ellen DeGeneres, like these are people that are doing transcendental meditation. So I'm ready
Yeah,
to be in that club. So why not?
yeah, yeah. That I would let's go there together. I'd be very happy to be. I'd really be very happy to get any of them a cup of coffee. So,
Yes.
or even a drink glass of wine.
See, but if I had to get them a cup of coffee, I would never actually show up with a cup of coffee. So I'll have to find something else to do. I
You
mean,
send me. You could send me.
okay,
I'll go get them
perfect.
a cup of coffee.
It'll be a trickle down delegation
Uh,
process.
this sounds amazing.
Oh, so good.
All right, Mike. So, do you have a few more minutes to have me give you a few more questions?
Yes, please.
All right. So, Mike, what are you passionate about?
What am I passionate about? I am passionate about. This is always such an interesting question. I don't actually know how to answer this, Jason, because
Okay.
I think is it things I'm interested. I always, I always feel like people who are like, you should follow your passion. I think it actually causes people a whole bunch of anxiety of like, what the
Totally.
heck is my passion versus like, just what are you into and what do you love? And so for me, what am I really into right now? I'm really into interesting esoteric Spanish wine, as we've talked about. I'm really into my dogs. I've got a 12-year-old dog, and I have a puppy that is just turning 1 year old now. So I'm super into them right now. I'm really
Yeah.
into finding. I'm really into stripping away some of these final layers of like the drag I've put on in life to
Mm-hmm.
go out in the world with even less fourth walls built up. That's exciting to me, and I'm super excited about figuring out what it looks like to do a cool event with 12 people in wine country talking about our stories and learning to be more compelling and interesting communicators. That's what I'm interested in, and that's what I'm psyched about, and that's where my energy goes. And I guess those are all passions.
Sounds like it to me. That's great. Yeah. I mean,
Good, it
and like
works.
let's also be clear. We spent like 10 minutes talking about wine. We talked about speaking. It's not like this is the first time you're like, oh, good question. We haven't really talked about anything I like. So this is just
Yeah,
an add on.
I'm
It's an
very
add on.
mild and timid and have no energy.
Yeah, exactly. So you've obviously done, as I said at the beginning, you've done some stuff, and you think you have been on this earth for around the same time as me. You're a what did you call it? What did you call it? A last year millennial,
So
or
the
what was the
oldest,
term? You're
oldest.
the oldest millennial. So I could call you an effing millennial too. It's just you're way closer in age to me than most of the millennials I'm talking about. What's the thing that you are most proud of?
I am most proud that if you were to ask, if you were to ask my family, if you were to, I'm really proud that I have a very consistent personal brand. I think if you were to ask my family, if you were to ask my friends, if you were to ask my clients, if you were to ask people that have been guests on my podcast, you would hear very similar things. And I'm really proud of the fact that it's consistent and that it is ultimately like when I think of me at my best, it's what I hope I am, and it's what everyone says. And so when I was redoing my website at MikeGanino.com, when we were redoing it and redoing the whole brand, and really the first time I put down a big amount of money to work with one of the most brilliant designers and brand developers, I really, really thought about not what did I necessarily want the brand to be and what did I like and what colors did I like and what did I want. I went out and I said to people, I interviewed family, friends, and clients, a lot of clients. And I said, when you tell other people about me, like if you were to recommend me to someone, if you were to refer me to someone, what would you say? And I asked that question over and over, and I got the consistent answer that was who I do try to be. It's who I try to tune my frequency into. And what they said is that I was enthusiastic, that my energy was contagious, and that ultimately I made them feel more comfortable being a more playful, fun, authentic version of themselves. And I heard that over and over. And that really, really, really,
That's cool.
I'm really proud of that. I'm really
Yeah,
proud of that.
that's awesome, Mike. I had a similar experience. I'm redoing my branding right now as well, and my copywriter she sent me a questionnaire. She's like, "What would your clients say about you?" And I'm like, "I could make it up, or I could just go ask them." And she's like, "Oh, I've never thought of that." I'm like, "Really? Why don't I just go ask my clients what they think, what it's like?" Because her question is like, "What is it? What would your clients say it's like to work with you?" I'm like, "Well, why don't I just go ask my clients what it's like to work with me instead of me making up what they might say about working with me?" She's like, "Oh,
Totally.
that's great." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go do that."
And I think it's a really good exercise. And if anyone's out there and thinking of doing something like that, I did get a different answer when I asked, what is it like working with me versus what would you tell someone else if you were encouraging them to work with me? I didn't get exactly
Mm,
the same answers. And I found that the what was it like working with me answer seemed to be a little bit more like them wanting to tell me what I wanted to hear. And
yeah, yeah,
when they referred me to a friend, I felt like that was more of their truth of what they would have said.
yeah.
And so that's an interesting way
Ooh.
is maybe ask both questions and see what you get.
Ooh, either that, or I might just steal the. What would you say to somebody who is? What would you do if you were going to provide me a refer or like refer me to somebody? To me, that's a much more powerful question because that's
Consider it on
actually
permanent loan. No need to
all
steal.
right.
Permanent loan.
Perfect. I won't steal permanent loan. I will hand it back to you sometime. Maybe I will hand you some technology at some point that you don't have to do yourself. That'll be my
Oh,
gift back to you.
my goodness. Yes. Erase deliverables from Mike Anino's list, and you are a
Oh
king.
man, awesome. So Mike, this question I always like to ask my guests. It can be a little vulnerable, maybe not. We'll see where it goes for you. So, what is something that you're afraid might actually be true about you?
thing that I'm afraid might actually be true about me is that I mean, I know this to be true, and I don't. I'm slowly figuring out what to do about it. Is that I have a lot of, even with all the things I've done and writing books and doing this and doing that and being on, some of the biggest things, and I have serious issues with valuing myself. And
Hmm.
so, I think that the thing that's the truth underneath of that is, do you have undealt with childhood trauma that is showing up in your everyday adult life? And in so many ways, a lot of things I went through as a kid. I mean, I grew up. We were poor. We were like in a trailer. My mom was 15,
Hmm.
and so there's just a set of statistics and facts that go along with that, and all
Yeah.
of those things were true for me. And so I think sometimes that trauma, that childhood trauma,
Hmm.
and it shows up in interesting ways. And some people develop addictions, and some people develop really unhealthy habits, and other people become very, very high functioning. And I'm definitely in that case. But I know the places where it shows up, and
Hmm.
the thing I'm scared might be true, or that I'm kind of winking at you and saying, "Ha, it is true," is that I
Hmm.
really struggle with my own worth sometimes because of
Hmm.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. So then here's the gut punch part of the question, or not the gut punch part of the question, but the surprise part of this question is get you thinking a little bit. So what do you do to compensate for that fear?
The unhealthy thing I do to compensate for that fear is to keep throwing stuff that nobody asked for. I
Mm.
I I spend 7 hours doing a podcast episode because I know that for what I want it to be and the worth I want to have, I want to over deliver so that people are like, oh my gosh, there's no question of what this is worth. So I know that that's one thing.
Mm.
And then the other thing I think I do that to overcompensate. I throw in
Yep.
the like, hey, I'll be at the event and I'll also, make omelets for everybody if you want. And I definitely like over deliver in ways for clients and things that they didn't ask for and nobody really wants. But it's like, oh yeah, I'll take a picture and I'll post it on LinkedIn for 72 weeks and I'll do this and that. And it's like nobody actually ever cared for it. So, and
Yeah.
the danger of that is then often because they didn't really want it, but I contractually agreed to it, then I get resentful of like, oh, you don't even
Mm.
care about this, but I have to do it. So if I could stop doing that, it'd be super helpful. And I think the other thing I do to compensate for the worth issue is that I hold on sometimes. I hold on to things that I should let go of, that I should let other
Mhm.
people do, and that's just tied to a perfectionism thing. And so my daily
Yeah.
meditation, my daily unstringing of childhood trauma is around saying, or life trauma really, is
Mhm.
the little knot that I'll probably all of my life be undoing and have to be thoughtful of is about recognizing that my worth isn't about producing things all the time. That
Mm.
sometimes my worth comes from a different place. And I'll probably spend my whole life meditating and unraveling that ball of yarn.
Yeah. And the good news is you live in LA where there's lots of good therapists as well who can work through that with you.
I'm just gonna go to the canyons and sing with Joan Baez. That's my answer.
I love it. And drink some good wine and maybe bring some mushrooms or something and just have a ayahuasca or whatever. It's California. You guys do all sorts of stuff out there. It's great.
That's great.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that, Mike. Thanks for being vulnerable about that. I appreciate you doing that. And yeah, I appreciate you giving a straightforward answer and be willing to look at that for yourself and share that with the audience.
Thanks.
So we're getting near the end of the time, and I do have a couple more things for you. So I'd love if you would, not a question, more just share with the audience and with myself, of course, your general philosophy on life.
My general philosophy on life. Oh my
It's a
gosh.
small topic.
I think my general philosophy on life, my kind of consistent uh, my kind of consistent thing I keep going back to is that like nothing really stands out as much as just showing up as unapologetically yourself. Nothing shows up,
Hmm.
nothing stands out, nothing feels better to you, and nothing feels better to the world than when you just strip away everything and show up as yourself.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's a really good way to summarize the work you do, the way you show up, my experience of being with you. And I think even on, not even on, but like your like social media brand and your website, like it all feels like, it seems like you've really taken this philosophy and incorporated it across all of your public avenues of life as we all get to see you. And yeah, it seems like kind of your operating system at this point is like you said, I'm going to be me. And if it's not for you, that's great. It's for a lot of other people. And that's another thing that I'm working on for myself too, is like, you're never going to be for everybody. It's impossible, because everybody's going to, we're human beings and we all have different things we like and don't like about others and the way people show up and all that. But yeah, I think that's a really super powerful philosophy that all of us can take on, because that is really the most important thing. Like, stop, like, I love the Republic, like, we're all in drag, like shedding those layers of drag away and just, this is me.
Totally true. Totally true.
So anything else at this point, as we wrap up for today, that you'd like to share with the audience, Mike?
You know what? On that, I've heard you in the past ask people about like, what's a quote to stick on a postcard or post it or something. And
that's coming as well. So if you want to get us to now, that's perfect. No, you're not cheating. It's all good. Like, let's keep the flow. Yeah. You want to just leave us with some words of wisdom that fit on a Post-it note. That would be great.
Yeah, because it's totally related to what you just said. And so I thought, you're saying this and it fits perfectly. I think the thing that should be on a Post-it note in everyone's office is, if you're too much for some people, find new people.
I love that. Yeah.
I think we dampen ourselves too much. And I think it's, if the people you're around, if you're being you, if there's no filters, if you're just being you and you're too much for some people, then find new people. Go tune your frequency into someone else.
Yeah. And I'm going to make a bad pun here, but that seemed like a mic drop moment to me.
I love it. I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, wrapping up for today, Mike, I want to thank you so much for being on. And before we close up for today, I want to, I have no doubt that when the audience hears this episode, they're going to want to connect with you, follow your amazing social media presence, see what you're up to, look up your retreats, hit you up for some wine suggestions, which maybe you give the first one free and then charge after that. Maybe that's a little business model you can have, is first wine suggestion free, and then like a monthly subscription of Mike will tell you what to drink this month.
My friends all text me all the time and they'll send me a picture and be like, hey, I'm at this restaurant. What should I get? And I'm always like, oh, this should be a business where I'm like a text away sommelier. Oh, it rhymes.
I mean, if you're ever interested in exploring the technology side, I literally came from the mobile app space. So that feels to me like a really easy mobile app of like on-demand sommeliers. Like, I'm here and here's the wine list. What would you recommend and why? And like click it, like take a picture of the menu, and like within like the rules, like within like 2 minutes, somebody comes back to you with something. I think there's something there.
Let's do it.
So yeah, where can we find you?
Yeah, so I'm super easy to find in all the places once you figure out how to spell my last name, which is Ganino, Ganino. So I'm Mike Ganino on all the socials. I love Instagram. I'm there most often. That's where you'll find me a lot. But I'm Mike Ganino everywhere. And then my website is mikeganino.com. And one of the things I have too, if people are super interested in checking out how to kind of think about using story in their business differently, I've got you're supposed to have these like opt-in things, like a little tool for people. And I went crazy. And again, back to the worth question, I wrote like a 25-page workbook on all of the stories you need to be able to tell in your business. And so that's at mikeganino.com/storycraft. And it's, you download this guide and you just get to work, and it tells you how to tell stories, how to write them. It gives you prompts. And so that's out there for the world, because I sat down and just kept writing one day.
That's great. It's awesome, man. Well, thank you again so much for being on. I wish you the best of your endeavors, the best of finding new wines to drink and recommend to all of us who are connected to you, and all the other things that you are creating now and you're going to be creating in the future. And I have no doubt that we will be connecting in again very soon.
Thank you so much for this chat. I loved it.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Mike. Thanks for listening to another episode of Talking to Cool People with me, Jason Frizzell. Enjoyed today's episode? Please tell your friends, give us a shout out and a follow on Facebook and Instagram, and take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes. If something from this episode has piqued your interest and you'd like to connect about it, please email us at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com. We love hearing from our listeners.